Here's a 1964 Arvin AM FM radio, and when I got this, it didn't have any tubes in it. Someone had removed all the tubes from it, so the puzzle was, well, what tubes does it use? Well, I thought I knew the tubes it used. Of course, I thought I'd just go with the regular, most common tubes, 50C5 output, 12AV6 detector, and first audio, 6BA or 12BA6 first and second IF, and 12BE6 AM converter. Now here's the FM tuner module, and I thought this used a 12DT8. Most of these modules use 12DT8 if it's in a series filament radio. Sometimes I've seen a few that use 17EW8. Some use 17C9, but 17C9 has a pin in the center of the tube, making it a 10-pin tube, and this was not just a regular 9-pin socket. So I thought, okay, this uses 12A or 12DT8, and so I put the 12DT8 in there. The AM on this worked, and the FM did not. And I finally ended up taking the radio completely apart. I had to take this dial mechanism thing off. It was mounted to the circuit board. The circuit board ended up cracking when I got that out, so I'm going to have to epoxy that back together. I had to take the cover off of this thing, had to take the tuning dials off, had to take the front plastic piece off, take the trim piece off. It was just ridiculous how much disassembly you had to do to get this, to get into this module. And then I started checking voltages. Before I even took the module apart, I checked voltages with this test adapter. And as a reference, I used this Arvin radio, which definitely does use a 12DT8. It's a different style of module. But I put this in, and I wasn't getting any plate voltage on one of the plates of the 12DT8. So I thought, okay, we got to take the module apart and see what's wrong with it. And I ended up taking off, this is the plate end of the IF output transformer. Ended up disconnecting this. I took the variable tuning inductor out, and the way it works, this nautilus shaped thingy presses against this thing to change the tuning. I really like the design. It's better than the ones that use that string. I've worked on some that has a string in it to pull the slug into the inductor, and those can be a lot more fragile and tricky. But in any case, I ended up taking it all apart, and I thought, and the final step was to supply an IF input from this tube type tuner, and supplying an IF from another tuner, it did work, and supplying 10.7 megahertz from the signal generator into the IF, it produced sound. So I knew the problem was in the module. So yesterday I was just exasperated with this thing, and I decided to go down to Retro Electronics and check the photo facts just to make sure I had the right tubes in it. Well, what would you know, this actually uses a 19 kg8 first, what would it be, RF amplifier, oscillator, and mixer tube. And the 19 kg8 is not a dual triode like a 12DT8. It's actually, I think, a half triode and a half pentode, or a half triode and half tetrode. It's got a screen grid to it. And so this wire here from the IF output went to the plate, and then it went back through, it went into this coil, and this lead went back to another terminal on the tube, which I thought was the grid. And I thought, well, why are you having plate voltage go back to the grid? That doesn't make sense. Well, it wasn't going back to the grid, it was going to the screen, which does make sense. So I learned a real good lesson on this. It's like I've worked with tube type radios for probably 25 years, and I got a little bit too cocky on this one, thinking I knew the tubes it used. Because for another thing, there was no tube diagram on the cabinet. It had fallen off. I would have looked at that first thing if it had it. But I've learned if there's not tubes in a radio, always try to check the photo facts, because it may not use the tubes you think. And I hope I can get this all put back together. I'm going to order some 19 kg8 tubes. They got them at ESRC vacuum tubes for $1 a piece if you buy 10. They got a special on them, so I'm going to order them. And then I'll try and put everything back together, and it ought to work then. But it's like there's a principle that says the simplest solution is usually the best. Don't know what the name of it is, but some kind of theory, and the solution that maybe had the wrong tube turned out to be it. I even took apart the FMIF can and put new capacitors on there because I thought it was an IF problem, but it wasn't. And these AM IF cans are really nice on this because they have real mica capacitors inside. I don't know if I can see if I can get this. I might have to, I don't know if I can get it off. I might have put it all back together. But I took the AM IF cans out and checked them, and they've got actual caps soldered inside the can. It's not those little sheets of mica that are so troublesome. So I hope I can get this working again. If I didn't mess anything up on these little wires, I need to file off the ends of the fine coil wires and get them resoldered back where they should be. So wish me luck on this one. It's just a very important lesson. Don't ever be too overconfident at what something uses. Always check it out and make sure you got the correct tubes in it, because sometimes it's not what you think it would use.